Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Lieutenant James Kerr. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge His Excellency Mr. Paolo Crudele, Ambassador of Italy to Australia, Admiral David Johnston, Chief of Defence Force, and the accompanying delegation who are joining us this evening to mark Italian National Unity and Armed Forces Day. Italian National Unity and Armed Forces Day commemorates the victory of Italy in the First World War and the completion of national unity. We also warmly welcome Général de Brigade Stéphane Richoux, French Army, Colonel Benjamin McLennan, Commander Combat Training Centre, and their accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Mercedes College, Springfield, South Australia. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament. Flowers of the forest, wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Second Lieutenant Andrew Ernest Ralph Barnfather. Andrew Barnfather was born on the 6th of August, 1891, in the Melbourne suburb of Geelong. Known as Ralph, he was one of 12 children born to Andrew Barnfather, a storeman, and his wife, Maria. Ralph received his education at Geelong College and gained reputation as a talented sportsman. After his schooling, Ralph was a member of the Light Horse Militia, where he attained the rank of Sergeant Major. He was working as a carpenter when the First World War took place in 1914. Ralph Barnfather enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force almost immediately after the war was declared. He was allocated to A Squadron of the 4th Light Horse Regiment on the 18th of August, 1914. 2 months later, he embarked for active service as a Staff Sergeant Major, sailing on the troopship Wiltshire. Barnfather and his comrades arrived in Egypt in early of December 1914. There, they trained for an attack to be made against the Turkish forces on the Gallipoli Peninsula. The majority of Allied forces in Egypt began this attack on the 25th of April 1915, though the light horse units were considered unsuitable for the operation and were to remain in Egypt. But within a month, casualties had risen on the peninsula and reinforcements were badly needed. So Barnfather and his comrades were deployed to Gallipoli without their horses and to act as infantry. They landed on the peninsula in late May 1915, and they were sent to reinforce various units across the peninsula. Barnfather and his comrades were involved in defending the precious Anzac position, most frequently around Ryerie's Post. They took part in a number of minor attacks into December 1915, where the Allied forces lost Gallipoli. In March 1916, Barnfather was transferred to the ranks of the newly formed 58th Australian Infantry Battalion. He was promoted to Second Lieutenant at the end of the month and embarked on the Western Front in early June 1916. They were immediately sent north to the border of France and Belgium, which had been the site of bitter and intense fighting. Now, comparatively quiet, this area of the front became known as the nursery sector, where new troops, such as Barnfather, were introduced to the trenches of the Western Front. After a few days in the front lines, Barnfather's unit was called into action near the village of Fornell. It was here that he would take part in his first and last major action of the war. Ordered to attack strongly fortified enemy positions near the Aubert Ridge, the Allied advance was preceded by a 7-hour bombardment. When the battles began in broad daylight, advancing units quickly realised that the artillery had been almost useless and had warned the enemy of an impending attack. Though some men made it to their objective, they were quickly forced to withdraw and were again caught under heavy fire. By the time the battle was called off, the 5th Division had suffered over 5,500 casualties in an attack which had been remembered as the worst 24 hours in Australia's entire military history. Among these casualties was Second Lieutenant Ralph Barnfather, killed by enemy machine gun fire near Fornell. Though Barnfather's men believe he was buried after the attack, his final resting place could not be located with any certainty. Today, he is commemorated among the missing and unknown at VC Corner Australian Cemetery and Memorial in France. Second Lieutenant Ralph Barnfather was 26 years of age. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right amongst 62,000 other Australians who died while fighting in the First World War. His photograph is displayed in front of me by the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Second Lieutenant Andrew Ernest Ralph Barnfather, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.